fear is?
Awkward social situation.
And that was pretty awkward, thank you.
We can look for
I decry Madam Toastmaster for placing me in such an awkward social situation.
Wow.
Dominic's speech was number 2 in the Competent Communicator Manual. It was how to organize a speech. The goals being strong opening and conclusion, an outline that can be followed and understood, and a clear message with supporting material and appropriate transitions. I thought Dom did a great job organizing his speech today. I think he met all the requirements of the speech. Using the PowerPoint is an especially effective way to get your thoughts in line, organize them, helps the audience stay on track with where you are too, so the organization is really embedded into the presentation. So with the use of PowerPoint, I think you really aided yourself in making that speech, especially with an early speech, the number 2 speech. Still trying to get your feet wet in speaking in public places. It's nice to have an extra aid to help you and help the audience stay on track with the topic. So good use of PowerPoint for this speech. Within your points, so opening, body with the main points, and then the conclusion. Within your points, even though you didn't have a lot, so it wasn't like too busy, you did use the technique of reminding people, this is what I think is the most important thing. If you're only going to take one thing off the slide, which really helps the audience focus back in. Sometimes we get distracted with reading something which wasn't a problem on your speeches, or you're bouncing back and forth between the speaker and the presentation. As an audience member, when you say, this is really what I want you to take away about. All right, even if it's one thing per slide. Dominic asked me to look at his hand motion. He said he clasped his hands. I noticed at the beginning he was doing that, but as he got into the flow of the speech, there's more natural hand motion. I didn't see your first speech, but I would assume it's probably an improvement since you're thinking about it and working on it. And then you also use good analogies throughout. So especially the solar panel analogy to nuclear power, you said it would be 160 feet wide by 85 miles. People can imagine that, even if you have no idea of what technologies involved or efficiencies or how big a nuclear power plant is. When you think of 85 miles of something, it gives you something to gauge, even if you don't have a technical background on the subject matter. Speaking of technical backgrounds, you didn't need a technical background to follow Dom's speech, so he did a good job of bringing it to the people. And that brings me to some room for improvement things. So going back to the PowerPoint, you had one spelling error, which is, I'm just like that guy, I'm always like, oh, there's a spelling error. You had expulsion on there. I'm like, what's an expulsion? You said the word, it was explosion. Just if you're going to be, like if you have a technical brief, obviously like a thesis presentation, somebody's going to lock in on that. It's not a big deal. The bigger deal is probably the clicker. You were hanging out with the clicker and then you were clicking your slides unbeknownst to yourself. So just be aware of that when you have a clicker in your hand and you're making motions, that you're not accidentally clicking or reversing or forwarding your slides. It wasn't a big deal, but if you're going to use PowerPoint throughout, just keep that in mind. The manual asks you to focus on transitions. When you say things like, that's my segue, then your transition didn't stand by itself. So keep that in mind as you're putting these things together. Try to build yourself, because that's hard for everybody to build a transition, I think. Try to stage those. Like the first speech says, stage your first line so that it gets you into your speech without thinking about it. If transitions are something that are hard, stage a transition in there so that you have something to go to. Either it could be on your slide or just something that you have in your notes to help you make the transitions without directing people to your transitions. And then the last comment I have for improvement is your timing. I felt like at the end your summary was, and here's my summary. That was for Karen. Just for you, Karen. Leave yourself some time at the end to put out the summary and reinforce the point that you're making throughout, that nuclear power does have a future and whatever that is. Overall, I thought your speech was excellent. You had a very natural delivery. In my opinion, you injected humor throughout, and I think as you progress through the manual, you're going to wow the audience with your future speeches. And thank you for allowing me to evaluate today.